Hello everyone, and welcome to episode number 86 of Conversations on India. And today we have a panel of three esteemed guests with us, Ayush, Krishna, and Siddharth.
Hello
Hello,
everyone,
guys.
this is Ayush.
Fantastic. Now, today we have two topics lined up for us. One is the Uniform Civil Code. There has been a lot of chatter around this, and the union government is trying to create the atmosphere for introducing this bill eventually. We're going to look at all the facets of UCC. And then in the second part of the conversation, we're going to focus on the recent summit that was held between President Biden and Prime Minister Modi in the US. It was a very landmark summit. There was lots of news coming out of it, and we'll dive into it in the second part of the episode today. So, starting off with UCC, welcome to the podcast, and let's start with Ayush. You're up first. Could you give our listeners a broad overview of UCC, its purpose, and its implications?
Okay, sure. A Uniform Civil Code or UCC is basically a set of laws that is applied to all the citizens of India, regardless of their religion or caste. So basically, it seeks to provide legal protection and rights to the citizens, irrespective of their faith and community. The main objective of the UCC is to ensure gender justice, promote equality, and promote social harmony in the country. The Constitution of India, in its Article 25, Article 14 guarantees all citizens a fundamental right to practice any religion that they choose and provide them with the equal protection under law. Despite this, different communities have different sets of personal laws which are based on customs and traditions followed by those communities. These personal laws can be discriminatory against women, especially when it comes to matters related to marriage, divorce, inheritance, or adoption. This is where the Uniform Civil Code actually comes in. It seeks to replace all these personal laws with a uniform code applicable for all citizens. This UCC will cover civil matters such as marriage, divorce, adoption, maintenance, and inheritance. It will ensure that everyone has an equal opportunity to avail these rights without any description or prejudice. This will eliminate the need for separate courts for different religions and communities, as cases related to civil disputes can be resolved quickly and efficiently under one law. Moreover, it can also help in reducing gender inequality by providing equal rights to both men and women in matters like inheritance and property rights, which has been a subject of great debate all around.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks, Ayush. Now on to you, Krishna. Could you take us through the history of UCC and the landmark cases that have fueled the debate around it? Yeah, Krishna, over to you.
आगे बढ़ो।
Yeah.
Sorry, there was some issue on internet.
Mhm. Yeah, okay. So thanks, Ayush. Now, Krishna, over to you. Can you take us through the history of UCC and the landmark cases that have shaped the debate around it?
Yeah, so very nicely narrated by Ayush about the brief description of UCC. Thanks. And now coming to the history and background part of it. So actually the concept of uniform civil code is rooted in colonial India. So British authorities actually tried to create a uniform law for all the criminal, civil, and other matters, but they specifically pointed that the personal laws of the different communities, Hindu, Muslims, Parsis, Christians, should not be codified, as it will be a very lengthy process and there will be many community flare-ups. And also they had learnings from the 1857 First War of Independence showed them that interference in religious and personal matters can be counterproductive for them. So that is why they tried to stay away from the concept of uniform civil code, but that is actually the birth of uniform civil code. So what they did not try to do, that is how it comes. Now, after gaining independence in 1947 and after adoption of the constitution, there was a big debate in the Constituent Assembly about whether to keep Uniform Civil Code in Part 3, that is fundamental rights, or in Part 4, that is directive principle of state policy. And again, there was a huge debate and different voices were heard, but ultimately the question was silenced by voting. And in the voting, definitely the part 4 won. So Uniform Civil Code came into the directive principle of state policy. But then in 1951, actually a steering committee under Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was set up to review the uh, committee report of Dr. B.N. Rao, who was the legal advisor of our Constituent Assembly of India. And B.N. Rao committee was actually framed in 1941 to create a uniform Hindu code of laws. So their report was reviewed by the B.R. Ambedkar committee, but actually no further steps was taken. And in fact, in 1955 or 1956, 4 different Hindu civil codes were legislated by the Parliament of India. And they were Hindu Marriage Act 1955, Hindu Succession Act 1956, Hindu Minority and Guardians Act 1956, and the Hindu Adoptions and Maintenance Act 1956. But these laws were only applicable to our Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, and Sikhs communities. And all other communities such as Muslims, Parsis, Christians, Jews, they were kept out from it. So this is basically the current personal law paradigm, that different communities have different personal laws governing them. So although the Hindu code laws were try to keep them progressive, because equal rights for women was tried to be given, but since they only applied to Hindus and not to other communities, the demand for a uniform civil code remained. And actually it was in different Supreme Court cases. For example, the 1985 Shah Bano case, where a Muslim woman, Shah Bano, was denied maintenance from her husband after divorce as per the Islamic law. But the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the woman and granted her maintenance rights under the Section 125 of the Criminal Procedure Code, and also directed the government to take steps towards framing a uniform civil code. Then again in 1995, in the Sadla Mudgal case, which involved a Hindu man converting to Islam to marry another woman without divorcing his first wife. And there again, the Supreme Court criticized this practice and reaffirmed the need for a uniform civil code. Then recently, Uttarakhand government actually set up a Justice Ranjan Desai panel to study the implementation of uniform civil code in their state. At present, only Goa is the state which has a uniform civil code, that is same civil code for all its for all its residents, irrespective of the communities. And a great step for the liberty and equality was taken in 2005 when Hindu Succession Act was amended to give property rights to women as well. So actually the women were elevated to class 1 heirs and granted equality with their male co-parcenaries. So this is the basic background of Uniform Civil Code, and law commissions have given different reports on it, some favoring it, some saying it is neither necessary nor feasible. But right now, again, the issue of Uniform Civil Code has been put up for public consultation by the current regime, and that is where we are right now.
Right. Thank you so much for the comprehensive and fascinating history of the UCC in India. And it's definitely a history that's filled with, all of these events that have happened, and all of them have shaped the debate today. Now I would like to come to Siddharth and talk about some of the implications of the UCC. What would it mean for social protection, for simplification of laws, and for gender justice? Siddharth, I think mute.
The Uniform Civil Code has significant implications. So the primary being the protection for vulnerable sections. Uniform Civil Code can provide better protection to vulnerable groups, particularly the women and religious minorities, by ensuring equal rights in matters of marriage and inheritance. So Raj had already pointed out that an inheritance bill was passed in 2005, but still there is a difference of inheritance that can be taken up by women of Hindu per se with respect to Muslims. So I'm not exactly sure, but it is in the ratio of 1/4 by Muslim women compared to equal in Hindu women. That is the first one. Then the simplification of laws. By replacing diverse personal laws with a single code, the UCC will simplify the legal system. It will make it more accessible and understandable to all. The best example in this case can be given of triple talaq that was removed by the Honorable Supreme Court, that was struck down in a judgment. So if there would have been a UCC, there would have been a uniform civil code. So it would have been both protecting the vulnerable section, women, and simplification of laws. Then there comes the most important issue of adherence to secularism. UCC aligns with the idea of secularism, ensuring that all the laws apply equally to all citizens, and it promotes a religion-neutral legal environment. So you cannot differentiate on the grounds of religion or claim special powers after UCC has been uh, applied. Then gender justice, the UCC could promote gender equality by ensuring men and women are governed by same laws, and it reinforces the constitutional guarantee of equality under Article 14, that all are equal before laws. So fundamental right is going to be ensured if this DPSP is implemented. So balancing these benefits with respect for religion and cultural diversity, that is a key challenge in this debate because India is a land of diversity. Now, finding a commonality in diversity to ensure that these religious interests and the minorities' rights are protected, to ensure that we actually become a better democracy, I think so UCC is needed, but a discussion and consultation beforehand is required.
Right. Thanks for that, Siddharth. Yeah. And now, as we continue this enlightening discussion, now I think let's shift the focus to some of the challenges that we might encounter while trying to implement UCC. And for this, I would like to go to Ayush. Could you explain some of these constitutional and social hurdles in implementation of UCC?
So yeah, okay. So we see that India is a land of diversity. We say there are multiple religions around us. So section of a society sees it as majoritarianism, which is basically under the garb majoritarianism under the garb of social reforms, which in my thoughts is basically like when a common code will be made, the rituals of majority will have a more impact. As another challenge which I feel is diverse personal laws. So basically, there are communities like Hinduism only, which vary hugely from one part of India to another part of India. We see that there are marriages of cousins which are considered sacred in southern part of India, while they are prohibited in the northern part of India. So we see this type of informity in Muslims and Christians also. There are five major schools of Muslims which differ majorly in the interpretation of the Sharia or the Quran, like how they interpret the Islamic law. They differ majorly in that. The five schools of Muslims, Hanbali, Maliki, Shafi, Hanafi, and the Shia school, Jafari. So we see that there is going to be this challenge, like how will that be implemented against this thing? So there is the constitution itself protects the local custom of Nagaland, Meghalaya, and Mizoram, and that's not about just just those parts. There are a lot of local rituals where the Adivasis are involved, so they tend to follow their own rituals. But when the UCC will be drafted, they may have to just stop practicing those rituals because of their clash with some particular thing in that UCC. So the other thing is protection of minority rights. But one of the main concerns raised by the opponents of UCC is the potential impact on minority communities. Personal laws are deeply intertwined with religious identity and practices of these communities. Minority communities perceive uniform civil code as an encroachment to their rights to religious freedom. Previously mentioned about Article 25, which gives you the right to religious freedom. So they fear that a common code will neglect their traditions and impose rules which will be mainly dictated and influenced by the majority religious communities. Protecting minority rights and preserving their distinct practices is considered crucial in a pluralistic society like India. Apart from all this, there is a misconception that UCC is a measure to abolish Muslim law, which has been portrayed by, of course, some of their leaders also, which is commonly viewed as outdated and discriminatory against women. In its authentic version, Justice Krishna Iyer had once said that Islamic law recognizes the sanctity of family life. So basically, Islamic law is not entirely incompatible with the modern society. So that's the thing. The divorce law of Islam is based on the concept of irretrievable breakdown of marriage. We had a lot of debate around this thing also, halala, which is basically you can't retrieve a breakdown of marriage until the wife gets married to some other guy, and and that marriage is consumed, and then they can remarry. So that is a basically, what we call it, torn out rule of Islam or something. And after all this, there is also a constitutional hurdle, which is more of a constitutional glitch. That is, Article 25 is there to provide you the religious freedom, while Article 14 says that all the religion practices, humans are equal before law. So it in itself is contradictory, because if you are following traditions of some particular religion, say, then there will be points where that will be clashing to the equality, as in the case of marriage we see. So these are some of the main hurdles in the implementation of UCC.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Ayush. And some very key points raised around communal politics and around protection of minority rights, which is where I would like to focus next. So, Krishna, what are your thoughts on the potential of UCC and the fear of minority communities that it might be a tool for majoritarianism?
Yeah. So the Uniform Civil Code as an idea and theoretically can strengthen the nation's secular fabric by offering a framework for equality and non-discrimination and simplifying laws for all the citizens, regardless of their religious or cultural background. So this simplification of laws aspect is also very key for citizens to enjoy their civic rights and even their autonomy in personal matters. However, minority communities have valid concerns that a UCC might impose majority centric norms or compromise their distinct cultural and religious practices. But in any sort of misconceptions or misunderstandings, there is only one solution, and that is communication. Lots and lots and lots of communications and assurances by the government of the day to all the communities that Uniform Civil Code will not aim to bring uniformity, but rather unity. And in fact, imposition of uniformity can be discouraging or can be counterproductive, as you have seen in different cases such as Bangladesh or Sri Lanka. So to dispel the misconceptions, it is crucial that uh, it is communicated that the UCC's goal is not to homogenize practices, but only to provide a legal framework that respects India's diversity while ensuring the fundamental rights of all citizens. Now, this will be a tough task and very difficult to implement practically, but that is the challenge we have in front of us. UCC is not about abolishing the personal laws entirely, rather integrating the principles of justice, equality, non-discrimination, and dignity across all the laws. So, if implemented sensitively and very carefully, it can respect diversity while promoting unity. But that requires obviously careful consultation and handling of these communal identities very sensitively, and meticulous drafting with respect to the different communities and upholding the rights of all communities. Also, we have to keep in mind that not only the minority religious communities, but also our tribal communities, they are also facing some sort of fear from this Uniform Civil Code. There have been voices of will show protests and will put out a dharna in against the Uniform Civil Code in tribal belts like Jharkhand, Nagaland, etc. And in fact, areas like Nagaland and Northeast, they enjoy special protection under the Article 371, where it is explicitly mentioned that the personal laws and religious affairs will be under the direct control of the community of that region. So these intricacies also have to be worked upon, but definitely as an idea, it is good. But how it is implemented and how it is actually drafted, that will decide what will be the implications.
Yeah, exactly right, Krishna. The implementation is going to be key here. Given India's diversity, we need to account for all of the different groups that we have and make sure none of their sentiments are hurt. And we're not really trying to change the personal laws. We're just trying to create a common system so that delivery of justice becomes easier. Equality is more spread out. Now, on this implementation point, I would like to go to Siddharth. And what are your views on how it should be accomplished so that it also aligns with the principles of a diverse and secular India?
Yes. So implementing a uniform civil code in diverse secular India should involve following steps according to me. The first one, already pointed out by Krishna, is inclusive consultation. So you have to engage representatives from all the communities to ensure that diverse perspectives are considered in the drafting of UCC. And it can be a piecemeal approach rather than being a sudden complete UCC implementation. It can be a model draft UCC that has common grounds and that is once being framed, and more laws over time are added to that. So that can be the first approach. After that, you have to ensure gender equality. So you have to emphasize equal rights and protections. You have to address gender biases present in some personal laws. And these gender biases are particularly present in marriage, divorce, and inheritance. These are the most three prominent gender biases that are currently present. We also have to ensure that the UCC so drafted is non-discriminatory in nature. It should apply to all citizens, regardless of the religious or cultural affiliations. So that will ensure non-discrimination, and that is the true meaning of being uniform in our country. And incorporation of diverse laws. So rather than erasing the personal laws, the UCC should incorporate their elements in line with the constitutional principles. And we have to celebrate India's diversity. So we are not questioning the India's diversity. We are just trying to find a uniformity in that diversity. And we also have to ensure that legal consistency and universal rights protection is also provided. So this is going to be a gradual, sensitive process, and that is going to create a code that embodies justice, fraternity, and equality in line with Indian Constitution. One quote before I conclude this comes to my mind is that of a sociologist, Andrew, who states that it is the direction. Law basically decides the direction in which society should move, but it is actually the culture that decides the direction in which society actually moves. So there needs to be an internalization of this culture where there's this discussion around UCC, and that is only when the society can progress in this direction. And I think so that is the foremost and the most important step in this implementation.
Right. Thanks for the wonderful quote, Siddharth. And I think thank you all for the thought-provoking discussion. Any last thoughts on this before we close this topic?
Yeah, so let me just open this. And definitely like a very thoughtful quote by Siddharth, quoting the famous anthropologist. My take would be on UCC that like there is a special marriage act separate from all the different marriages act of different communities. Similarly, there can be a uniform civil code coexisting with all the different personal laws. So if someone wants to follow the uniform civil code, they can get their things registered or performed under the uniform civil code. And if someone has a very sacred, or like if someone does not want to follow that, then they will have their own personal community law or their personal board, whatever they have. So this distinction can actually allow a flexibility for those who want to adopt a uniform civil code and those who do not want to adopt a uniform civil code. So this can be a bridge towards a common uniform civil code in the future. But definitely we cannot elevate directly to a uniform civil code and eliminate all the existing personal laws that we have. And we have to find a middle ground. And I feel that a separate uniform civil code that is optional for people, that can be a way forward.
Right. So the point of optionality being raised by Krishna here, which is, I think, it may be tried for a few years before we start to go into it, full steam ahead, just to see how the community reacts. And it always gives an option to people to opt out of it if they don't feel like it. So it's definitely valuable.
Like the old tax and new tax regime that we have.
Right. Of course. Anyway,
Right.
all right.
I also have.
Okay. Okay. So I would like to add a point. Hello.
Yeah. So Siddharth first, and then Ayush. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would like to add this point that in the case of UCC implementation, the majoritarianism, the majority people, be it in terms of religion, be it in terms of say gender perspective, or even in terms of sexuality, because now that gender identification, sexual orientation has become non-binary. Now we have a range of sexual orientation. So it is the onus on the majority to act as an elder brother and give more ground and more, I would say,
Space.
Freedom to the minorities in all the sense. Yeah, exactly. In all the sense to come up and have an accepting view rather than an imposition of their own view. Only then can this be a true uniform civil code. So I think so that is also one very important thing that needs to be kept in mind, particularly by the majoritarian people and the group, that you have to give freedom, and that is the true essence of democracy.
Right. Thanks for that, Siddharth. And right. So with that, we've come to an end, come to the end of the first topic, and now we'll move on to the second topic. All right. So hey everyone, we're back with the second topic, and now we're going to discuss the Indo-US ties, especially after the big summit that was held between the leaders of the two countries. And to do this, let me first start to unpack this, and I would like to go to Siddharth first. So the floor is all yours. Why don't you give us an overview of what happened and what were the key points?
So the context is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Joe Biden, they met on 22nd June and they affirmed a vision of India and United States as the closest partners in the world. And it was quoted as a partnership of democracies looking into 21st century with hope, ambition, and confidence. So they had discussed a lot of points, the primary being the collaborative projects, and that was across sectors such as space, technology, semiconductors, telecom sector, artificial intelligence, scientific research. They also focused on the importance of ICET, that is the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies, and a cooperation between NASA and ISRO in the form of NISAR aperture radar being formed, and further collaborations such as training of Indian pilots and astronauts. Another very important thing that was concluded in this that was that India has accepted to become a part of Artemis Accord, and also India has been granted the partnership of mineral supplier group, that is a major minerals critical minerals supplier group led by US, because particularly the major minerals as of now are dominatingly controlled by China. So that was a grouping that was formed way back, and India has been granted a membership. So now we'll be discussing on these aspects. This was the broad overview as to the discussions that were primarily held.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Siddharth. Absolutely. Those were the key points that were discussed. And often we see that partnerships that the US makes with other countries, they start with defense partnerships and basically alliances that in case of war, US will be defending them and so on. But in the case of India, this partnership is leading with technology. So technology is really the first leg on top of which this partnership stands, and that is what I would like to sort of double click on. And coming to Krishna here. And let's actually start with space. And so, can you throw some light on all of the agreements that were, signed, especially in the category of space technology?
Yeah, so first and foremost, India and ISRO and NASA had started their collaboration with NISAR satellite. That was NASA ISRO synthetic aperture radar. And it was basically an Earth observation satellite where both the organizations were almost equal partners. ISRO was also providing some key technologies, and NASA was also providing some radio band frequencies which were to be used in satellites. So after that, now India has signed the Artemis Accords. So under the Artemis Accords, actually there will be return of the humans on the moon, and NASA is planning to send one woman and one person of color to the moon in the recent future, and it is inviting all the international partners to collaborate with it on this mission. Also, private sector exploration of the moon will be promoted under the Artemis Accords. So that actually creates a new field for explorations and resource extractions and new technologies development. Then there is this ICET, which is the Initiative for Critical and Emerging Technologies between USA and India, that has been signed. And it is actually being run by the National Security Councils of both the countries. So under this ICET, there will be 6 areas of cooperation, which are the really emerging technologies such as quantum and artificial intelligence, defense innovation, space, advanced telecom, 6G and semiconductors. So these are some of the sectors that will be in focus under the ICET. Also, there are plethora of different ties or agreements in different sectors, such as in defense, there is Indus X, which is a special partnership between India and US to promote defense innovation and engagement. Also, there have been the signing of the 4 foundational agreements between India and space in defense sector, which were LEMOA, BECA, COMCASA, and GSOMIA. So these were the 4 foundational agreements that made India like a major defense partner of US. So these are some sectors where India and US have definitely moved of a long way, but definitely the key aspect again is how these agreements and these MOUs will fare in the future. What role ISRO plays in the Artemis program, and what are the critical technologies that India receives from US. So actually, there is one more that the signing of the fighter jet deal between India and US, under which India will get General Electric F414 jet engines, and around 80% of the technology will be transferred to India. So these are some key agreements that literally put India and US as an equal partners in the emerging sectors, especially defense and space. And the ground is very fertile for both the countries right now.
Right. Yeah, but thanks, Krishna, for the overview on the technology agreements, especially in the space and the defense sector. And now I would like to go to Ayush, and could you delve into these technological investments a little bit further? And what do they mean for these two countries, especially in the area of semiconductors and 6G networks?
Okay, so first of all, I would like to bring your notice to this MOU signing of semiconductor supply chain and innovative partnership between the leaders of two countries. This is being seen as a significant step in the coordination of the country's semiconductor incentive programs. We used to see that semiconductor industry was totally, thrashed by Chinese through their Taiwan. But now it's due to the signing of this MOU, there's a huge breakthrough for semiconductor industry of for India. So the leaders also welcomed an announcement by Micron Technology, which is a US-based corporation, to invest up to $825 million to build a new semiconductor assembly and test facility in India, with support from the Indian government. Of course, this investment is around for 40% of the total investment. It's not the complete investment for the project. The rest will be provided by the Indian government. The combined investment is valued at $2.75 billion. That would create 5,000 direct jobs and 15,000 community jobs opportunities in next 5 years in India. This is a breakthrough, although we are not going to manufacture any of the semiconductors or that thing, but still it remains a breakthrough for the India. So the leaders also welcomed a LAM research proposal to train 60,000 Indian engineers through its Semver solution virtual fabrication platform to accelerate India's semiconductor education and workforce development goals. The next big thing was the ambitious vision for 6G networks. Through TIG 6G, the Technology Innovation Group on 6G, set by Department of Telecommunications, in turn constituted 6 task forces with industry, academia, R&D institutions, and government as members on multidisciplinary innovative solutions, multi-platform next generation networks, spectrum for next generation requirements. Through this India-US relationship. Apart from this, there were major, major investments in quantum coordination mechanism. As we see, the next decade is going to be for quantum only. So I think that is a huge plus for this relationship.
Right, awesome. Yeah, also there's lots of attention going towards that semiconductor deal which is signed between Applied Materials and Micron Technology, and this actually means $800 million of FDI into India. And Ayush rightly mentioned it was north of $2 billion of total investment. What this will do is insert India firmly into the semiconductor supply chains, and especially with the environment around Taiwan heating up, and Taiwan itself, TSMC itself is moving its semiconductor fabs out of Taiwan and into the US. And I think with this move, India also inserts itself into that same supply chain, and we'll be able to manufacture semiconductors not only for domestic needs, but also export them internationally. So this is great news. Now let's turn our attention to defense and clean energy initiatives. And for this, Siddharth, can you please help us guide through the defense aspect of this?
Right. See, when it comes to United States, you have already mentioned that defense is going to be a very important thing. So yes, when it comes to India, US defense leagues. So India and US, they are major defense partnership. They have a annual 2+2 ministerial dialogue. We do have joint exercises being taken up, the Malabar exercises alongside Australia. We have liaison officers in each other's military organization. They'll better the information sharing. Raj Krishna has already pointed out the four basic agreements that are signed between India and USA. We are also a part of Quad, the grouping of four. So India, Australia, Japan, and India. Uh, and apart from that, there is a new Quad that has also been formed that is particularly pertaining to the West Asian sector of Israel, UAE, India, and US, also referred to as I2U2. So it is leveraging markets to be more innovative, inclusive, science-based. So this is one. Apart from this, now the leaders have welcomed the adoption of a defense industrial cooperation roadmap. So it is going to provide policy directions to the defense industries, and it is going to enable the co-production of advanced defense systems, prototyping, their testing. So it is going to be by the means of technology transfers and joint collaboration in formation of new products. Raj Krishna had already mentioned about the GEF 414 jet fighter engine deal. And HAL, they are going to be used for the Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, LCA, MK2. India is also, India's emergence is a hub of maintenance and repair because we are expert in that sort of work. So US has recognized that work, that India can be a very potential hub for maintenance and repair of its defense equipment. So that in a way is going to give multiple jobs in Indian sectors, apart from boosting our own defense capabilities and also re-engineering from the basic product. So we have concluded the mastership repairs agreement in that context with the US. And IndusX has also been pointed out by Raj that is going to be launching of India-US defense acceleration ecosystem. And in this, startups and industry and think tanks, they are going to facilitate in co-production of technology. And there was also a very ambitious plan that has been welcomed to procure General Atomics MQ-9B. So these are a class of UAVs that are going to enhance our ISR, that is the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities. So in general, these are the major defense deals as of now that have been taken into consideration. So what I see is more technology transfer, better collaboration and formation of next generation technologies via the ICET generation, and recognizing of India as an equal partner where US can, on which US can trust, it can send its machineries to be repaired, which they know that India can re-engineer, and the manufacturing of the US technologies in India, quantum technologies, because next era is going to be that of a technological war. So I think so this displays the bonhomie between the nations that it is going to the next level.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Siddharth, for throwing light on the defense technology partnerships. Apart from these technology partnerships, India also conducts multiple defense exercises with the US. It's part of international groupings alongside the US. So I only see this partnership deepening as we go into the future. And this summit has set up a great, some great deals have been signed here, and these will help us get closer to each other as we move into the future. Now, coming to Krishna and the clean energy front. So, Krishna, can you throw some light on the key points that were agreed on in this meeting?
Yeah, so clean energy has been on the agenda table between India and US for long. In fact, clean energy and decarbonization was also a separate pillar under the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, which India joined last year. But recently, actually, there have been great strides towards this field. So, strategic clean energy partnership was launched by US and India, and under this partnership, there is an Agenda 2030 partnership, where bilateral cooperations will be created on to meet the goals of Paris Agreement. So the Agenda 2030 is basically to meet the Paris Agreement, and US and India will bilaterally together try to achieve it. And there are two main tracks under this: the strategic clean energy partnership and also the climate action and finance mobilization dialogue. So actually, climate finance is a huge bone of contention between developed and developing countries, and India is negotiating it with US on behalf of the global South. Also, India has elevated the Indo-US energy dialogue to the strategic energy partnership back in 2018. Then, actually, the beginning of this clean energy partnership can be said to begin to from the NSG waiver that US granted India during the 123 agreement between India-US civil nuclear deal, which was signed in 2008. So that was the beginning of clean energy partnership between India and US. And also there has been a setting up of India-US low emissions gas task force, decarbonizing the transport sector in India, DTII. That is uh, being done by the Niti Aayog from India, and similarly the respective organization in the US. Also, there has been a PACER initiative, so Partnership to Advance Clean Energy initiative. It is anchored by the Indian side by Department of Science and Technologies. So these are some of the agreements and collaborations in the clean energy sector by India and US, and definitely the anchor is the strategic clean energy partnership that has been signed recently by both the countries.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for the overview, Krishna. And on the clean energy front, the deal, the US aid support to make Indian Railways net zero emitter by 2030 is, another highlight coming out of this. And India being the only country that's held good on its Paris goals is also another thing that I think the US really appreciates. And going forward, I can see India becoming a leader in the clean energy front, given that we are a hub for solar energy, because we are a tropical country, and but we don't really have access to hydrocarbons. So that puts us in the key spot to really go full steam ahead on the clean energy front. Right. So now coming to the last topic of discussion today, and for this I would like to go to Ayush, and let's discuss the nuclear power domain and some of the geopolitical concerns that were raised in this meeting.
So, there was a long time the negotiations were going between the NPCIL and the American electric company, Westinghouse Electric Company to be specific, for the construction of six nuclear reactors in India. So now it has been like almost certain after this meeting that they'll be setting up six nuclear reactors in India. Uh, Apart from that, they welcome the intensified consultations between the US DOE and India's DAE for facilitating opportunities for this electric company to develop a techno-commercial offer for the Kovada nuclear project. Koda nuclear power plant is an announced nuclear power plant in Ranasalam, Srikakulam, Andhra Pradesh, India. Apart from this, the United States affirm its support for the India's membership in the nuclear suppliers group and commits to continue engagement with the like-minded partners to advance their goals. Uh, uh, Apart from this, talking about the current geopolitical scenario, see there was a conflict going on between Russia and Ukraine. So both the leaders took deep concern over the conflict in Ukraine and mount its terrible and tragic humanitarian consequences. So both the countries have pledged to render continuing humanitarian assistance to the people of Ukraine. First, both countries concurred the importance of post-conflict reconstruction in Ukraine. Of course, both of the countries on their own have some of their concerns with Russia. Also, as India is buying a lot of mineral oil from Russia, and US was concerned about this. But uh, for that, this meet the agenda was to set up a more humanitarian society against again in the Ukraine thing. Uh, Apart from Ukraine, there was a Myanmar concern. Also, there was a transition of Myanmar towards an inclusive federal democratic system. So the leaders also appreciated that thing. The leaders also condemned the destabilizing ballistic missile launches of the North Korea, which violate relevant UN Security Council resolution and pose a grave threat to international peace and security. They reaffirmed their commitments to the complete denuclearization of Korean Peninsula and urged the North Korea to comply with its obligations under these resolution and engage in substantial dialogue. So we see that this meet was geopolitically very important, where the big concerns in the world were discussed. Of course, everyone has their own benefits from some other countries, but for this meet, the agenda was to be specific around that only.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much for
Apart
your
from this,
points. Yeah. Yeah. Go on.
yeah. Apart from this, there was one more big highlight that was India-US trade. Which has been almost doubled since 2014. And apart from just this doubling, that India was in trade deficit of 22 billion dollars in 2014, while the last financial year, India was in a surplus of 32 billion dollars in the US uh, trade and investment partnership. So I see that as a big plus to the India.
Yeah, excellent points there, Ayush, both on the geopolitical front as well as on the trade front. You're right, the bilateral trade has reached 191 billion as of last year, and US is India's biggest trade partner, which is another point which brings the two countries closer. Also, there was a huge acquisition of planes done by Air India as well as
Yeah.
by Indigo from Boeing, which is an American company, and it's going to create jobs in America. So all of this is great news, and with that, I think we can wrap up this discussion between on the Indo-US ties. Thank you so much to all of our audience for sticking with us through this episode, and thank you to our esteemed panel for showing up and sharing their terrific insights. And Ayush, for you, this was your first appearance on our show, so hopefully it was a good experience for you, and you got things to learn. And thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
And as always, thanks to Panda and Krishna as well. And now I think that time is right for Krishna to.
Yeah, so the views are personal, and thank you again, Vyas, and everyone for having us, and thank you, our listeners. So, see you in the next episode.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Ayush.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
again in the
you.
next episode.
All right, awesome guys. With that, episode 86 in the books. Catch you all next time. Take care and have fun. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
guys.